on the last episode of the podcast.
Overall, we had decent impressions of the beta. It was a game with, good bones. They just had to tweak the monetization, fix the bugs, have content come out more regularly, keep people's interest. But as you'll see, as we go through the full timeline of its rise and fall now, you'll see how things quickly took a downturn.
It's not news. It's utterly nonsense. So in the beginning, it was November 18th, 2021. After some leaks and speculation, a trailer is released on the IGN YouTube account for this new game that's going to be Warner Brothers themed, as it's advertised, and to be a crossover platform fighter. The trailer comes out, and within a week, it's got 1.6 million views and a 97% like ratio. So, people are interested. It's a decent idea. So now we go to 2022. May 19th, the closed alpha test goes live, which we played, and for the first time, because there were two technical tests before that, but now with this, people are allowed to publicly share gameplay on YouTube. I think they're allowed to stream it on Twitch and talk about it and post pictures on Reddit or whatever. So it's the first time people are getting a real good look at it and what it's likely going to be. It launches with a battle pass, a 50-tier battle pass, which is weird because the alpha was only around for 2 weeks. And that has 6 alternate skins in it, a detail that'll become relevant a little bit later. So July 19th, the closed pre-beta goes live with some gameplay tweaks, the new monetization system like we said, and the pre-season battle pass, which only had 15 tiers and 3 alternate skins in it. I think one of them was a repeat. And they also started the Founders Packs. Now the Founders Packs were this big buy-in. I think the tiers were $60, $80, $100, where you get character tokens. So they're these things that just let you unlock a character right away. You don't have to grind. You don't have to go through the Gleamium thing. You just have a thing that says you exchange this to get the character. And I believe the amounts were 10, 20, and then 30 was the the ultimate premium, most expensive $100 Founders Pack. You got 30 characters tokens with that. Now, mind you, there are 35 characters in the game now, and that's all there's ever going to be. And at the time the beta came out, a few of the characters, I think, were just unlocked by default, or, just very easy to get.
Yeah, I think there was 2 or 3 you start out with, and then you sort of have to grind to get more beyond that. Right? I remember Wonder Woman you got right away, Shaggy you got right away, I think Rain Dog was one of the starters too.
Yeah, oddly, I don't think that he was, even though it's this original character that they're trying to make the mascot of the game.
I'm almost thinking maybe they had him as a starter in the alpha and then, closed him so you'd have to unlock him in the beta, but it's one of the worst characters in the game, so who's really paying for Rain Dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, public beta then launched shortly thereafter. Did we say that already? July 26th?
No, so the closed beta was July 19th, and then was that a week later, it goes public, and you get 143,000 concurrent players on Steam on the first day. Now, we're only using Steam numbers because that is the most readily available metric that we have. I had read an article somewhere that pointed to some other website that says this website shows that there were 10 million registered accounts by the time the game was a month old, or something like that.
It is important to mention too, it is a cross-platform fighter, so you could have PS4 players, Xbox I think still does have it, right? I don't see too many on there, but it looks like it's mostly PlayStation and PC. And obviously you have Epic Games, you have other third-party platformers for PC, so it might not be the most accurate picture. But it does speak to the larger trends that are involved here. If you have 153,000 players on Steam, how many do you have on these other platforms? Probably not too far off from that number.
Yeah, well, probably more. But what's important is the trending up and down. I would think that's similar across all platforms. Yep. So the game would peak its concurrent players on Steam the second day of the public beta release with 153,000. That would be the highest that it would ever hit, including the official release. So, August 15th, the start of Season 1, end of the preseason, During this time, the time that Season 1 was around, the concurrent player count would fall by 80,000 players in a week and by 140,000 by the end of the month, going to all the way below 3,000 in November. So that's over 90% drop from the peak. Now, usually, I think almost always, as we pointed out with Pal World, there's always going to be a big drop from the day one players, because it's everyone trying the game, especially if it's free. So you're going to get the people who actually enjoy it and stick around, and then, it'll level out somewhere. But 90%, man, oof, that's like Suicide Squad level bad.
The thing is, I don't think it was really an outwardly bad game at that point. I don't think, look, I clearly didn't stop playing at that point, so maybe I'm in the minority, but it's like, what do you think turned people away that early on, that quickly? I mean, a 90% drop, really, basically right after launch is just ridiculous, Again, 150,000 concurrent players isn't terrible compared to some of these other major games we've seen. Like, it's a big number, but put into perspective, it could be a lot bigger, Just the fact that it shed that quickly there. I don't know. I can't really fully explain it beyond some of the, other aspects and larger picture problems for why the game didn't work,
It's tough. I mean, it could be the fact that the roster was kind of small on release and that you had to, from that small roster, unlock some of them. So you're only given, 3 to start with? It was Shaggy, Wonder Woman, maybe Harley. Maybe not even Shaggy, actually. I think Shaggy was made free in the first week, but he was on the rotation, so he rotated out and then they made it somebody else.
Right.
It could have been the over monetization, as we talked about that. Or it could have just been, I don't know, this game is silly, or I'm having connection issues, or it's just something you play on a weekend and then forget about. Who knows? But there was definitely not as much interest after what seemed like there would be a huge interest.
Yeah.
So something went wrong.
So, yeah, I mean, by August 23rd, which was a little over a week after Season 1, we started seeing more new characters. So, Morty from Rick and Morty fame became the first of this next batch. We got Gizmo from Gremlins, which, when they announced that they were including Gizmo, I kind of assumed, the, little boy from Teen Titans for some reason. That was on top of my mind before the Gremlin.
Oh, yeah.
September 27th, you got Rick. Arguably, probably should have been around the same time as Morty, but, they went a month later for some reason, for the more interesting of the two characters. October 12th, you get another Gremlins character, Stripe. Kind of questioning, it's I understand that there is some cult appeal to the Gremlins, but it's they're trying to go for this, early 20s something crowd, right? Do you think Gremlins were the best characters to include and, doubling down on that for that kind of audience? I don't know.
It's definitely 80s nostalgia.
Yeah. October 31st, to tie in with the Dwayne Johnson movie at Black Adam. And I think the Black Adam movie came out a week after that. It was early November release, 2022. Back when he was going to restore the DC universe.
Yeah, his shift the balance of power or whatever.
That was, I think, the exact quote he used. Didn't work for that. Didn't work for this. Moving on.
Yeah. So at this point, you got 2 characters coming out per month.
Yeah.
In the first season. Which seems decent.
Yeah, no, if they had kept with that release schedule, I think you probably could have kept a lot more of these players engaged. Part of the reason it gets boring is because, it gets repetitive. You get pitched up against the same characters. You just get bored of, what you're currently working with.
Yeah, and for me, at least, fighters are the content of any fighting game.
Yep.
That is the main thing I show up for.
Yep, 100%.
The game mechanics could be whatever. I'll probably get used to them if I'm interested in who's actually in the game. Especially, mainly if it's, this game that's focused on IPs. Known IPs. You have other games like Tekken, or, I don't want to say Street Fighter because that's been around too long, but I'll say Tekken, or say, King of Fighters, Killer Instinct. Games with lesser-known characters where you really play it for the mechanics of the game. But for me, at least, I'm mostly interested in fighters because of the characters. Sure. So you think with that many coming out in the first season that you wouldn't have seen such a drop-off, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it happened anyway.
And I will say, it's like, I was obsessed with Naruto growing up, and they would come out with a new Naruto-based fighting game to keep in line with where the anime was at and introduce the new characters that came out with that game. I would buy them year after year just because, oh, I'm obsessed with this character. Oh, I want to play this game to fight as this character. That's the closest I can be to, like, you know, feeling this character's abilities as my own, right? That works. Mm-hmm. That psychology absolutely works. And, you know, if MultiVersus had kept up with that demand, maybe it would be a different story, you know, a few months later.
So November 15th, the second season starts. And during this time, the player count would peak at a whopping total of 3.4 thousand on Steam, and eventually fall below 300. Ugh! Damn.
Yeah.
So it peaked at 153, just to recap, 153,000, down to like 3,000. Wow.
Yep.
And then on November 21st, they released Marvin the Martian, and for the rest of Season 2, which would go on to be extended, no other characters would be released. Just complete drought. Nothing happening. I think maybe they had like the little in-game events every now and then, where it's like, play the game or play the Rift, and you'll get these skins maybe, but that's it. Like I said, I don't really consider those little events where you get the random skins to be content. For me, it's the characters.
That was something too. We didn't even, I think, mention rifts throughout this entire, note section we did, but, you know, that was something that wasn't present in the alpha. I don't think it was present in the beta, unless I'm misremembering, but...
Yeah, it wasn't in the beta, that's right.
So that was something that, you know, they sort of shoehorned into the main version of the game that just really felt unnatural. And, like, first of all, the game isn't challenging at all, you know, the rifts. It's a single player, maybe double co-op if you really want to bring a friend in on that. But it's like... It's
challenging in the time investment.
It's not challenging, though.
Well, here's the thing. When you play the harder difficulties, if it even lets you play them... Mm-hmm. Because I think eventually they would just lock you out of it until you reached a high enough gem level or something.
You had to get the right perks range, and you had to level up the perks before you could actually go for those higher difficulties. The thing is...
Well, you know what? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's get to that when we talk about the relaunch.
So anyway, we're at November 21st, Marvin the Martian. Let's see. Season 2 is extended to March 31st. March 27th. Yes,
on February 8th, it's announced that Season 2 would be extended past the planned February 14th end date to March 31st. And the reason they gave was to allow more time for people to level up their battle pass and I think, you know, play the ranked mode to get whatever the end rank season reward was. So when this came out, I remember thinking, is that a sign of something? Because there's been no content, and now they're extending the season, which has no content. So then...
It sounds to me like, first of all, like, I mean, look, you see these numbers, you're a developer here, you're Warner Brothers here looking at these numbers. You have no faith in this project that it's going to succeed at this point. Why are you investing more into trying to include more characters or anything? That's what I think is happening behind the scenes here. That probably would explain that lack of content, which is obviously counterproductive because you obviously need to put in new content to get people interested in the first place, so... I don't know. It's like you can't see these numbers and not be freaking out if you're in leadership there.
Yes, and then 4 days before that new end date, March 27th, the closure of the open beta is announced, and the director puts up a lengthy explanation on the website. He was saying something to the effect of, now we know what we need to focus on, we're going to fix things, we're going to work out a content release schedule, but it's like, you had a content release schedule, you didn't keep it up. All you had to do was fix the connection issues, and, you know, monetization being what it is, maybe that's like the one thing they could have focused on correcting, but he was coming at it from like a technical standpoint, you know, like, we're going to make the game so much better, and for that reason, we need to take it offline. Now, some people in comments treated this like it was always the plan. Like, what do you mean? This is weird. This is a beta. Of course it was going to stop so we can get the release version, but the way it came about... seemed like it was unplanned.
Well, it's...
Because that's certainly it's like the feeling I get in the voice of the text that the director wrote. It's like, we didn't expect this, but now we're going to do something about it and work on it and bring it back different. It didn't seem like this was always what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, so like we said at the start of this thing, we sort of expected the open beta felt like a full game. So it's like we didn't think that they were going to actually go into the main game, or if they were, we didn't think it would be that much of a disruption. But obviously, this was a staggering thing. Like, no one expected it to make that change in the first place and to be so abrupt about it. But it obviously went down within a couple months of them making that announcement that it was going to be made into a full game. And, I was optimistic at that point that, it's like maybe they realized that this is getting a little bit repetitive. Maybe they realized that, it's getting kind of limited with the content they're putting out. This could be an excuse for them to really get their shit together and make a better game a year from now.
Yeah.
So I go into this with this cautious optimism. The servers officially go down on June 25th. It gets brought back a year later on May 28th, which is my birthday. Getting ahead of myself.
Here's a funny thing, though. In the original announcement of the closure, they say, okay, it's going to go down, the servers will go down on June 25th. But then on April 4th, the game is already delisted from all the storefronts, and you can't buy any in-game currency.
That's right.
And I think that came out of nowhere, too.
Yeah, no,
because
I
that wasn't...
They must have made that announcement with the open beta, but it's like, the fact that they're closing this essentially months before the servers are out, it's just a weird sign, especially for anyone who, invested in Glamium or invested in characters or, whatever other in-game content they felt the need to spend real-world money on. It's a slap to the face of anyone who bought a Founders Pack, which I can't imagine was too many people, but still I'd be personally offended if I were in that camp,
Yeah. So I remember that at this point on our end, since there was no new content, like, I wasn't even interested in playing. I'm like, they're shutting it down. I wasn't really playing anyway because you didn't release anything. There's nothing different. What am I going to go back to? Because there wasn't that many characters, at least that I was interested. Like, Gremlins, I don't care about. Rick and Morty, I haven't watched that, so I don't care about them. So the only new character that I got was Black Adam, and I used him, and I'm like, okay, I'm bored. So it closed, and we're like, whatever. So then 8 months pass, nothing. Silence. Gone. And then on March 5th of 2024, the Twitter account reactivates, and on the 11th, they finally post a video announcement saying the game is coming back on May 28th. We updated the netcode, and we switched to Unreal 5. I'm not sure why. The game engine seemed fine before when you were on Unreal 4. But I guess Unreal 5, it's new. It'll fix all these bugs. What do you mean, man? Unreal 5 is great. You've been playing Marvel Rivals lately on Unreal 5? Isn't the performance great?
In the words of Barney Stinson, new is always better.
Exactly.
It's not. It's really not. Like, just stick to the basics. What are you thinking here?
And you know what? I think they might have had to have asked Warner Brothers for more money to switch to Unreal 5.
Yeah, I mean, their priorities were definitely not in the right place there. Look, it's like we said, the beta really didn't feel all that different from the full game. You would not notice that they switched the engine at all from version to version.
Well, aside from all the freaking bugs.
Yeah.
But imagine with all the issues that it did have in the beta that could have been focused on, then saying, okay, we're going to keep this thing down for a while, a year, possibly. I don't know if they knew behind the scenes how long it would be down for. But it's say, we're going to take the thing completely offline and really nail all these things. Or we could waste all of our time rebuilding the entire game in a new game engine. Yeah, let's do that. Does that make sense? So
that's the thing that really vexes me about this whole story. It's like, any major studio, and I realize it's, a third-party studio that they use to build this thing, but they have access to Warner Brothers resources. They have access to all this IP. They have access to all the reviews on Steam. They have access to all this feedback from the community. They had a whole Discord server dedicated to it by this point. They have subreddits. They have a Twitter account. You're getting... it's literally a golden age of feedback from fans. You have a million people telling you a million things from different directions. Even if you have one intern that's filtering through all these and getting all this information, you have all of these answers being thrown at you, and you just chose to ignore basically all of them. What does that tell you about their priorities? It's almost like they wanted the thing to fail if they're just outwardly ignoring all the feedback they're getting from fans.
Well, maybe this is a point we'll get into later when we talk about exactly what went wrong. Apparently, at least according to a seeming secondary source, there were management issues. They were kind of, doing the see no evil, hear no evil thing, covering their eyes, ears, and only listening to certain feedback that they wanted to listen to. And it shows, because, say, even if that person who, it's a long Reddit post we'll briefly go over, but even if that person is talking out their ass and they don't know anything, you could see it in the product we got. If it was managed correctly, would it really be in the toilet like it is? Would we have had all these issues? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a weird choice. So, yeah, I mean, that was March 11th was the video announcement. April 7th, and I remember this distinctly, I actually do watch a decent amount of hockey. MultiVersus had a cross-promotion with the NHL and a Avalanche versus Golden Knights game. And, I mean, I don't even remember watching this. I think I saw some clips after the fact where they, subbed in MultiVersus characters with the players on the ice. It's a lot like if you ever watch, they'll sub in NFL characters with, the most recent one was SpongeBob characters they had playing at one of the Monday night games a few weeks back. It makes sense in theory to cross-promote because you're building one brand or the other. With the NFL, it's like you have these popular Nickelodeon characters, so you're opening an audience of kids up to football, basically, right? It's a good excuse for little kids who might not have any familiarity with the sport or might not have an input otherwise to get them in front of the TV and watch this game. And, oh, hey, I actually like this, so maybe I'll keep watching this without the fun characters a little while down the line. Now, look, hockey isn't the most popular sport in the U.S. I'm willing to admit that as a hockey fan. It's, I think, number 4 or 3 after all, depending on where you put baseball. It's like, the strategy would really only work if they were trying to get MultiVersus fans to watch the NHL. I don't think it works the other way.
Yeah.
I don't think NHL fans are going to play this game because they see Warner Brothers characters playing on the ice,
Part of me wonders if the reason why they got hockey is because maybe it was the cheapest sports organization to collaborate with, and previously we saw that there was already a massive drop-off at players, so maybe WB is thinking, yeah, let's promote this, but let's not go all in. Because you know what would have made more freaking sense? Cross-promote it with the NBA. If I'm not wrong, LeBron James is still playing, right?
Yeah, he is.
So you could have used him. He's in the game.
I do know Warner does have some distribution rights with the NHL too. They get exclusive games on Max all the time, so it wouldn't shock me if that's part of the reason why they probably had that existing arrangement, so it probably didn't cost them as much as going through an NFL or an NBA. I don't know exactly what came about from that discussion, but if I had to guess, that's probably part of the reason,
Well, either way, that did absolutely nothing to help it, so...
It did absolutely nothing, and I will add, I have nothing against the Vegas Golden Knights personally, but they are the most hated team in West Coast hockey, so maybe not the smartest idea, but again, it's...
what do people on the West Coast know about moving around on ice? Let's be real.
Yeah, no, it's weird. It's like there's 3 California hockey teams, and they all are honestly pretty terrible. Okay, whatever, we're not talking about hockey here.
So May 28th, the game finally comes back online with altered gameplay featuring much slower movement. The characters have been made larger than they were, and the camera's more fixed and zoomed in to the action. That was something that a lot of people took issue with. I remember that distinctly. You had the 3 new in-game currencies, so instead of gold, it was split between 3 things. There was now fighter currency, perk currency,
right.
Something else, the prestige stuff, which you just use to unlock other cosmetics in their own little section of the in-game shop. And then you still had the Gleamium, which is the premium thing. They had 3 new characters, Joker, Jason, and then the banana thing that apparently was made in a weekend. I don't know. The menu was different. I remember looking at it and thinking, just what am I seeing? Where is anything? I don't know. I'm old, so I hate change. And everything was rearranged all over the place.
It's
so many clickable things.
Look, I don't necessarily mind the changes, but at the same time, I agree. It's a lot of little things that didn't seem to really make a difference, aside from kind of confuse. Why would they invest their time on some of these interface changes when there's obviously structural and bug issues throughout the existing game?
I don't know.
Why fix the things that were sort of either unnoticeable or didn't need fixing? It baffles me.
To justify their continued employment.
So, again, it's like these three characters, too, sort of support, like, the good, the bad, and the ugly of what you're getting here. It's like, Joker, yeah, he's a good character. He's a DC icon. It makes sense to include him. Jason, oh, he's a horror fan, so maybe we're bringing in a different audience. Banana Guard, I mean, you have a few Adventure Time characters in here already, but it's like, why Banana Guard? It's like, it's literally just a banana guy that's in the background of a few scenes. It's like, of such a minor character in Adventure Time lore, yeah, you'd probably know it if you watch the show, but it's like completely random to anyone from outside that world, so...
Well, supposedly, the team was, and I'm quoting the director here, inspired to make that character, because I guess they just randomly threw around some ideas and said, yeah, you know, we could actually do that, and we already have access to Adventure Time, so why don't we just do that? And then they hammered it out really fast, and you get a character out of it. See, the thing with this game is, unlike Smash, where it was announced ahead of time that there would only be a certain amount of new characters getting added with the DLC, with this, it was, as we said, theoretically...
Infinite.
Yeah. Not really infinite, but, you know, you could keep getting new characters from all these different things, so I would never really took issue with any of the inclusions, even if it's, you know, from some source that I don't give a shit about, because there could always be more. So, the character himself didn't bother me. What bothers me is his freaking power and range, and how bullshit he is to fight against sometimes.
Which, again, is another issue. I don't think we said it at the beginning, but balancing has been a consistent problem throughout their... Like, basically every time they introduce a new character, it's ridiculously overpowered, and they have to launch an update just to reel it back in. Yeah, it's absurd, and they still have not fixed that. It's like, Aquaman is definitely a little bit of a powerhouse, you know, more than he should be, and this is, you know, a year after launch, so... Whatever. Yeah, so anyway, we mentioned the Rift mode before, but it's worth including that here too, because why did you include Rifts? Let's see, there's a number of removed features and options, like being able to try unknown characters in practice mode. Sorry, I misread that.
Yeah, that was a big thing, is when you go into practice mode, so obviously the game's monetization model is centered around incentivizing you to buy the characters.
Right.
But to address that being, you know, less competitive, I guess, or less conducive to competition being even, you could at least fight against and use the characters in the training mode, even if you didn't own them. When the game relaunched, you couldn't do that. It's like, it worked before, why can't I do it now? What's up with that? But eventually they would add that back. Let me read real quick the other features that apparently were absent on the release. So they removed advanced tutorials, beginner tutorial, bot battles, co-op versus AI, free for all, that came back. Join lobby, I think you could join people's lobbies now, so maybe that was just like
a temporary thing,
out for a few days or something. And then I guess an extra mode, Silly Queue. They had added more weird modes.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually tried that, and I have like close to 300 hours in this game.
I think I tried it and it sucked.
Yeah.
And they removed items from the game, which, you know what? I wish there were items. Why aren't there items? Like, if you're going to be a Smash clone, be a Smash clone. Don't reinvent the wheel. Do what was successful.
I don't remember it being that extensive to begin with, but...
It wasn't.
Yeah.
But it could have been.
Okay, so...
You had a new battle pass with 70 tiers, and if you were a returning player, it was made free to you. So, they changed it so you had to get the battle pass to get Jason right away. So we got it right away, and I remember not even thinking twice about that. And this time, it included the premium currency in certain tiers of the battle pass, whereas you didn't have that before. I know a lot of games have that. That's at least a minor improvement.
I mean, I will say the battle passes were wildly inconsistent from season to season. I obviously didn't buy every single one of them because I didn't spend any real world cash on this game. But it's like you earn enough Gleamium just through different missions or...
What did you just say?
What?
You didn't spend cash on this game?
I know, I'm part of the problem.
You sunk the game.
I know. I'm personally responsible for this game failing.
And you know what? So did I, because I didn't spend $1 on this shit.
Just my time. And effort.
Yep. And like we said, there's a whole lot of bugs.
Yeah.
A whole lot of bugs with this new update. At least, in my experience, way more than before. How many times have you loaded into a match, and it shows everybody's name at the bottom or the top, wherever you have the name showing, and it says 3, 2, 1, go? Nobody's there.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just its way of compensating for people who rage quit or quit because they see the character they're playing against, or have a genuine disconnect issue that causes the entire lobby to shut down. Whatever the case is, it is happening a lot more. And I figured, maybe this is because you have a lot more players now than you did at the very start, or but it's still consistently happening, and there's no one fucking playing this game now. So,
yeah. Do you remember we kept trying to play twos when it came back, and you were constantly disconnecting?
Yeah.
You specifically.
Yeah, and again, it's like my internet's been solid. I've got a pretty solid wired setup down in my basement here. Obviously, I don't have.
Well, I think you had Wi-Fi,
here.
And then I don't know if it was because of that.
No,
but you did end up getting wired.
So I remember distinctly. It was after the beta that I got that wired connection, and I was disconnecting basically as much, after it got out of open beta. So it's clearly not me at that point, and I haven't had connection issues on any other game, since going for that change. So it's a bug. I mean, like there's no excusing the servers for not being able to keep up with the demand. It's
UE5.
It's ridiculous.
Well, maybe, I don't know. I'm just saying UE5 because what else can I lay the finger on? So on this relaunch, the player base would surge back, on Steam anyway, to 114,000 concurrently. And then within a month, back down to 6,000. Another 90% drop off.
And again, it supports the point I made 40 minutes ago that they probably did go out of open beta and bring it back just to justify saying, oh, hey, we're back, we're new and improved, come play the game again. And it clearly worked temporarily.
Yeah, well, maybe that was the idea initially, but I don't know if they had the idea to go offline for a year.
Yeah, I doubt it. I would have, honestly, if they had gone for 3 months, probably would have had the same impact. Maybe better because people wouldn't have forgotten about it.
And clearly they needed more than a year.
I mean, I don't think it would have been any better with more time, honestly. It's like, again, a year is a fucking eternity for game development.
Well, the thing is, when you're working in a completely new engine, that takes a lot of time, which is why I always go back to, why did you decide to switch to UE5?
Right.
Complete failure in decision making.
And obviously I agree with you. It's like, it just shows that they don't understand where to invest their priorities. Look, there's a million things they could have done with that year, and they basically chose to do the dumbest thing possible, which is, invest in a new engine, do nothing to improve the actual game, relaunch it as if it's something totally new.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So then, that was May 28th. June 3rd, Iron Giant, temporarily taken out of the game to fix an infinite grab bug. Okay. June 6th, they actually decide to give you XP towards the Battle Pass for playing the game. I'm not even sure how you were expected to get it before they gave you XP after every match.
I think it was just off of missions before. So you complete a mission, you get some XP that way, which obviously you don't get. The missions are varying degrees of difficulty. Not every one unlocks easily. You're obviously not unlocking a mission every single time you play a match. It can take a few just to get to the the basic qualifications there.
Oh yeah, and that was the thing with some of the missions, is it requires you to use a certain type of character or a character from a certain series, which you probably don't have because, you either just started playing or maybe you didn't have everybody from the beta.
Right.
So it's just inflating the time to make progress in anything as much as possible. And that's something that that one Reddit post went over. He was talking about, because he said he was like an industry professional and he was working in monetization schemes. He called it pain points. And that with this game, they were putting in as many pain points as possible. All this negative reinforcement to incentivize you to spend. But I feel like if it's all negative, if it's all stick and no carrot, why is anyone going to come back? If they don't feel like they're being rewarded for playing, why would they keep playing? Guess what? They didn't. So yeah. Then July 2nd, just a month after Iron Giant was removed, I think he came back within a month.
Yeah, I mean, for all of these temporary removals, they were pretty short-lived, to be fair.
Yeah. Then Jason was temporarily removed to fix an infinite grab bug. Alright. July 8th, Agent Smith is released, and there was like 2 ways to get him. You either grinded through the insanely tedious Rift system, or you just bought him.
Yeah, which I did the former, not the latter, and it's not worth it. I mean, for the amount of time you have to... Like, he was probably the hardest character to earn through grinding alone, just because how convoluted you basically had to beat a boss for every single. I think you had to beat like 10 bosses, which would be at varying degrees of difficulty just to get Agent Smith. And I mean, at that point, there wasn't that many bosses, so
it was defeat 10 bosses, but there were only, I think, by the time he came out, only 3 or 4 rifts. So you had to go through.
You basically had to beat it on the max difficulty for at least 2 of the bosses just to hit the bare minimum. Yeah. And honestly, I don't think
it's very repetitive.
The bosses at the early stages of rifts too were basically impossible to beat on the higher end. Like you'd have to go in with 2 people just to stand a chance, and even then, it's like kind of a grind. So,
yeah, I remember we did that, and I used your progress to just skip past whatever I would have had to have done, because you only needed to beat the bosses. Technically, you didn't have to do the entire rift. So if you teamed up with someone who had already progressed all the way to the boss, then it would count for you. Yeah, I remember using that as a shortcut, so I was happy about that.
So
July 23rd, Season 2 debut, and you get Samurai Jack, and the hype around Jack bumped the player count to 14,000.
No, it's not nothing. Well, I mean, not from 3K, it's not nothing. So, I mean, that does, again, support the point that the characters do matter here. It does obviously drive some engagement from the player base.
Yes, but there is a trend that I think you'll begin to pick up on. Then August 20th, Beetlejuice was released. I don't think there was any bump in player count for him, even though there was a movie coming out.
Right.
September 17th, Season 3 is out. You got Powerpuff Girls now. Player count rises to 5.7 thousand. You notice it's getting lower and lower each time. Each and every bump is just smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yep.
October 15th, they released a character that you probably never heard of called Nubia. Apparently, she was, the first black female superhero in DC Comics?
Yeah, which, again, we were looking at it after the fact. There's a stunning, very few number of black female characters in DC Comics, so it's not exactly that high of a bar, but yeah, she's technically a Wonder Woman supporting character. Unless you're like a diehard Wonder Woman fanatic, I don't think the average comic book collector has actually heard of this character. Certainly not in the extended media. I mean, I don't know how many DC comics I've read over the years and just had never heard of this character prior to going into this game. So, it's just another weird inclusion when you think about it.
And I remember when she released, she had the most insane, ridiculous reach and like combo potential in the air. That pissed me off a little bit. So then, not much is happening other than the release of the seasons. November 12th, you got Season 4 debuting with Raven. I was happy about that.
Likewise.
Player count rises to 4.7 thousand. So also on November 12th, along with the release of Season 4, they added a new mode, a new playlist. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so basically it's called Arena Mode. It's part of this middle tier experimental, it was them trying to add more to the actual game beyond the basic 1v1s or 2v2s. Basically, it's still a 2v2, but you're paired up against 7 other teams, and you're basically fighting for supremacy just to try to get to the top.
It's King of the Hill.
Yeah, Ben, it's like there are different perks that you can apply between rounds and increase yourself, whatever. So the thing is wildly unbalanced still, and they just released another update that's basically centered around Arena Mode, where you have to get a certain number of points and you get certain unlockables just by playing through Arena Mode and getting different stats through Arena Mode. The problem is, first of all, it's basically impossible to actually play through the entire thing because it disconnects so frequently, and because it disconnects so frequently, they have this neat little trick in there that automatically knocks you down a place in the rankings, and sometimes kicks you out completely if you or someone else in your lobby disconnected. Doesn't even have to be someone from your team. If the other guy is disconnected, you basically have to sit back and watch as you're slowly losing ground in this arena. And the problem is you drastically become less powerful than the teams ahead of you as the arena mode moves on. So it's like, if you didn't get first place or didn't lose a single round, you're basically fucked for any rematches or anything. So anyway, that's been my latest point of frustration. I tried playing through it. The disconnects are just ridiculous with it. But again, this is something we've seen throughout every other phase of the game too. So why am I even surprised?
Yeah, all I have to say on that is I tried it once, and I found it just tedious because you have to play so many matches, and then they have whatever those power-ups are. Like, I don't even know what half of them do, so it's kind of like trial and error. And there was no way I was playing through that again, so yeah, it didn't catch my interest, and I don't think it really made a splash because I didn't hear anyone talking about it.
That's the thing, too. If assuming you play through the entire thing and get in first or second place, you're playing at least 12 rounds that are, a minute and a half, 2 minutes each. So, plus, you factor in the amount of time that you're waiting between rounds, you're spending at least 20, 30 minutes playing through this thing without any chance of really leaving or being able to do anything.
Yeah, not for me.
It's not a good time.
Yeah, but the real big thing, well, sort of big thing, that came along with the Season 4 update was the introduction of fighter roads, which replaced fighter currency. And the way that works is more or less you still grind to get characters for free, except now, and I think it takes about as long as with fighter currency. Obviously, I didn't actually go and measure that, but just from playing it a little bit, it seemed that way. But the difference is, under the guise of making it, quote, simpler to get
streamlined
the rest of the fighters, of streamlining the process, they're actually just taking away your choice in choosing what new character you want to get. Because, like before, you grinded for the fighter currency, and then before that it was just gold. But you were able to still pick the character that you wanted. Like the newest character would be double the amount, and then if you wait a season, it's the regular amount like all the rest. But now, doing away with that, it's just like another match XP or battle pass XP, another XP thing that goes into this linear thing where at best it like groups some characters together arbitrarily, and you could pick what order you want to get the characters in each specific group, but
to some extent,
basically it's still all chosen for you, and it's just another pointless change to try and squelch more money out of the player base. It's like, hey, look at this. It's actually making it better, but really, we're just gonna wring you out more, make it more painful because the game is dying and we gotta get every last cent we possibly can. Yeah, anyway, it sucks and no one likes it.
Yes to everything you just said. I remember when that update first released, it was around the same time they put Raven into the game. And because she was a new character, you literally could not unlock her as part of this fighter road. You'd have to have spent Galimium or, got her as part of some other package or bundle.
Don't forget the first 3 days, she's only available to buy with the premium currency because they started doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I think I just waited the 3 days and got her with fighter currency. Oh, by the way, they made it so that obviously you couldn't get fighter currency anymore, but whatever amount you had remaining, I believe they rounded up in your account because it's, 3,000 per character. They rounded it up to be an even number so that you wouldn't have leftovers. So at least they did that, but they didn't have to do anything but leave it the way it was.
I will say, at least by that point, I had most of the characters in the game unlocked, but, you had no way of switching characters around at that point either. And maybe they changed that after the fact, but it's like Raven, to unlock her as part of Fighter Road at that point, you would have had to unlock every other character before her. So, again, fortunately for me, it wasn't that much of a grind since I've been playing since day one, but if you're a new player, and, this is another point we've made earlier in the podcast, it's like, part of the real problem why this didn't last is because they had such a hard time maintaining an audience and such a hard time attracting new people. When you pull shit like this, that's a good way to alienate new players, You basically have to play through this entire thing and grind through this entire thing if you want any of these characters. Or you pay for a game you're not sold on yet to unlock the characters you actually want to.
How many times did they screw over new players? Because there was going from the beta to the release where people who played the beta got, the new battle pass for free, and then they had whatever characters they were able to unlock before the systems were changed. So new players just coming to it at release probably had more time they'd have to invest or more money, whatever. And then they do something like that where it's like, hey, if you're just coming on now, and you don't have any fighter currency or you don't have any left and you didn't know this change was happening, you're out of luck. Bad decisions, bad choices. Yeah, and this is also part of what went wrong.
So obviously it's been hemorrhaging players since day one, but yeah, I mean, part of the reason why it's losing its audience as quickly as it is and why it's not retaining new players is because of shit like this.
just to reuse the metaphor, it's like I had said. Too much stick, not enough carrot. Yeah. Fuck you, Doc. Then December 17th, they release Marceline, and then they announce, along with that release, that Season 4 would be extended by 2 weeks. And I remember when this tweet was posted, can I call it a tweet? When this post was posted...
Everyone still calls it Twitter, don't feel guilty about it.
I remember putting it in our Discord and saying, it's over. Because the last time we got an announcement of a season extending, it turned out to be over. So, now we're in 2025. Nothing until January 31st, when the announcement comes that I predicted, that I feared, that the final season was going to occur, and that the game would be closing all the servers, delisting from everywhere, so not just close the servers, but delisting from all platforms, on May 30th. In-game purchases were disabled, and then there was another long message post left by the director of Player First Games where it seemed to me, at least, like he was trying to offload responsibility for all the things that went wrong, but we'll get into that when we talk about what went wrong in Part 3. So, February 4th comes, they release Season 5, and they put the last 2 characters, Lola Bunny and Aquaman, for free. And there's a bump in the player base to 2,000.
You know, it's like you're reading these numbers. It reminds me of this book I read when I was in high school. I never forget what the name of it was, but it's like this sci-fi series where everyone has chips in their brain, not unlike what Elon Musk is trying to do to the American population. And it's like the one girl in it is like one of the 1% of people who has a defective chip, and she's like slowly losing brain function throughout the end of the book, and you see the percentage start to tick down. Anyway, much like MultiVersus, this is slowly making me lose brain function.
Yeah. And again, these are Steam numbers, not all platforms, but I think the trend is indicative. So then, the game as it is now is set to close on the 30th. You won't be able to download it if you're a new player. I think they said this during the beta that you could download it if you already had it, but if you didn't, then it's just gone. The servers will go down, you won't be able to play online, but you can, to quote the announcement tweet, still be able to enjoy it offline. Yes, I enjoy beating on bots and playing Rifts. Who knows if Rifts will even be active, because those are kind of online related with the, with all the tasks you have to fill out.
Yeah, I don't know how... Functionally, I don't think this thing's going to be playable once they take it the servers down completely. I mean, it's like we were talking about, first of all, would we have any interest in playing as a group if we have no real ability to connect online? Like, you can get around it with, like, the parsecs of the world and everything, but it's like, is it really worth the effort at that point when there's other fighters that probably offer the same experience and don't make you go through a whole extra step to play them?
Yeah, I think we're going to try Brawlhalla. How many people playing that right now? I got to look earlier, and I think it was like 15,000 concurrent. Now, Brawlhalla, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Brawlhalla. Oh, right, like Valhalla.
Like Valhalla, yeah.
I was thinking it was supposed to be a play on the word brouhaha. Anyway, it didn't have nearly as high a peak player count as MultiVersus did, but what it had was a much higher stable player count. And that's what you want. That's another quote from the guy in the Reddit thread. He said it's better to have 20,000 $2 players than two $20,000 players. You want to keep
a
steady base.
So, and that's one of the points I wanted to make with, we talk about the misguided monetization strategy as part of our one went wrong bullet points.
Yeah, so let's officially get into what the heck went wrong. Where did it all go downhill?
The MultiVersus saga will conclude next week. Here on Utterly Nonsense.